As we barrel on towards lunch, I'm going to bring up Mr. Stowe Boyd of Gigaom Research, and he is going to be moderating a panel on the Quantified Kitchen. We all love quantifying things. Please welcome up Stowe on our next panel.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't need that one. Thank you. Well, it's tough to be at a smart kitchen summit and running a panel session just before lunch, because there's no possible way that we can avoid mentioning the word food. So
we'll
have to just make do. So I thought we would start off. Everyone knows that all comic books, superhero stories, start with an origin story. So I'm asking my two panelists to give their origin story. How did you get to be sitting on this couch here today, and give people a little background on yourself. Madhuri?
Hi. Thanks for having me here, Stowe. The origin story is pretty interesting. It was eating breakfast. So we all eat breakfast. So was I, sometimes. And the origin moment started there where I went, I've been eating breakfast for last I don't know how many decades. And don't make me out to be too old, I'm not. But decades, for sure. So, and I thought, I don't know what I'm eating. I've been eating breakfast, but I don't know what I'm eating. So wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to actually figure out what it is that I've been consuming all these years, what it means in terms of am I having a healthy breakfast or not? And the questions kind of spiraled in from there, and we arrived at a product. So that's
Great.
how it happened.
We'll talk about that next. Santiago.
First, I want to acknowledge that I was called a superhero, so that's pretty cool. We started the right way here. My origin story is basically my wife having a problem in the kitchen and me coming up with a solution. So pretty dorky. But then that ignited a lot of, the idea of solving problems in the kitchen and my passion in cooking and thinking about how we can use technology to empower people in the kitchen and let them achieve the things they want to achieve there.
Thank you. So let's start with the fundamental notion of quantified kitchen. When I first read the preamble, the précis about the panel, I immediately started thinking about the quantified self, that people want to measure things, and I thought about its connection to fitness, well-being, those sorts of questions. But there's a lot more to it than that. So once again, could you start, Madhuri, and tell us what you're thinking about the lay of the land in this sector?
Sure. So looking at this as a quantified self, I would say is a narrow approach. There is a much bigger impact, there is a much broader scope to what quantified can do, and it relates more in terms of awareness. So it's not quantified self, but it's quantified awareness about yourself, about the community that you are in, about how you're interacting with the things around you. So when we talk about food and nutrition, we generally tend to think, is this healthy enough for me? Am I eating well? And so on and so forth. But that's just a very small portion of the story. The other parts tend to be, where is this food coming from? What's the story behind that? We waste about 27% of the food that we buy. So is there a way that quantified awareness can help me reduce that waste? Is there a way that local farmers can understand what is it that most people eat in this region, in which seasons, so they can produce better, so they can farm better? I think the effect of that is it's a ripple effect. It goes beyond just one central figure, the individual. It reaches out to the broader community. It reaches across societies and even countries and continents. And it really helps us become much more aware of ourselves and the things that are happening around us.
I'm fascinated with this notion of knowing more about the food that you have in your kitchen and you're going to eat. I mean, I live in the Hudson River Valley, which has undergone this explosion of food awareness in the past couple of decades. And so in my case, and for many people who live in my little Hudson River Valley town, I really do know the people who raise the meat that I'm cooking for dinner tonight. And one of my neighbors brings me eggs from his daughter's farm in Hyde Park. So I actually do know quite a lot about the conditions of the animals associated with those things and the vegetables that I'm getting and so on. I think that's a fascinating thing, but doesn't it require a whole bunch of new data collection mechanisms that right now, I mean, I'm doing it personally. There's no data collection. It's me knowing the guy that lives 2 doors down from me. So how does that fit into the Quantified Kitchen? How do we get all that data so I know something about this egg that I'm about to cook?
Yeah, so my take on that is, 10 years from now, the notion of not knowing exactly what's going into our bodies and, not knowing what the nutrition is associated to the food I'm eating at this very moment, where the thing comes from, will be crazy, will be kind of funny to think that we stand in a supermarket like trying to decide what to buy, what's better for us, and looking at some label that says, 50% more protein. Like, we'll laugh at that notion because we'll know, we'll have so much information in real time about these things. Like, the Internet of Things is no joke, and it's happening not only at a consumer level, which I think it's actually like the hardest hurdle for the Internet of Things. It's happening in an industrial setting as well, and so it's just gonna be crazy to think about a world where we don't have that data.
Well, I'm optimistic that we will. It's just a question of time frame. And along those lines, the notion of time frame is kind of interesting. I was chatting with you backstage a minute ago and suggested that we might be in a situation where we take as a given certain basic premises, like what the nature of nutrition or nutritious food actually means, but we might be building technologies ahead of what the general perceptions are. The science that has taken place hasn't filtered into the consciousness of American society because, for example, we were subjected to the example of the entire food industry, the government food agencies, for years telling us high fat was bad for us, and now the science is difficult to ignore that was a put-up job. There were a lot of people who found that they could make money out of selling a certain set of foods to people based on the premise of low fat being good for you. But the reality is we have new science, but the other day I went to dinner with a friend and he said, let's go out to someplace healthy. And I said, well, what does healthy mean? And he said, low fat, someplace where I can get a salad. And I said, well, I'm all for you getting a salad, but low fat is not a healthy diet. There's a wide range of healthy diets. So I think the question is, are we ahead of where people's consciousness is about things like nutrition? It's fine to say you want to have a kitchen with gizmos in it that help you have a nutritious diet, but people's thoughts of what that means is all over the place. So how can you triangulate on something where the population of people that are going to buy these things still are living, the innate conservative nature of people is their mindset about what is nutrition is maybe 20 years out of date.
Our take on this at the Iron Chef, we look at this to solve this issue through personalization and context, right? And so you're right, like low-fat diet may not be the best diet for everybody, and it might not be even the best diet for you depending on the day, the time, the level of exercise that you're doing, etc. And so we look at this static way to think about nutrition. It's not very good, right? It's not very scientists are trying to come up with shortcuts, right? So that people in general can comprehend and get change some things to get 80% there. But we know that it will require way more personalization and understanding the context of your day, of what you're doing at this point, like what happened, 5 minutes before, in order to optimize the nutrition to you. And I know it sounds crazy and it sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually easier than most people think. And there are ways to do this and set people on the right path and help them with these decisions. The fact that we have to all act as nutritionists and food experts all the time through many and many, many iterations of decisions that we make every day around food is crazy. Like, we shouldn't have this pressure. Like, you're certainly not deciding, like, the frequency of your bus. Like, you just hop into the bus, it comes there, you have a schedule, right? And the same thing is gonna happen with nutrition. We need to help people understand and enjoy food instead of having to focus on, like, is this good, is this bad, and stressing about it. Stress is a big deal, right? And a lot of people stress a lot about what they're eating, and that's not a good combo.
Well, I really like the point you made that what is good for you might be different on different days or different times. When you come back from working out at the club, you should eat one set of things. And so that the idea is that there isn't, these are not the 3 meals you should have every day for the rest of your life, and it's nutritious. I mean, obviously people crave, a wide variety of things. They like novelties, so they want to eat things, make things that they've never had before, for example.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, like, people tend to eat more or less the same things over and over, right? So the world of foods that you are inclined to is not infinite, right? However, there is a time for everything, right? And so there's a time for this, there's a time for that, and, like, optimizing around those times and helping people with recommendation engines and with, all the tools that technology can bring, and put that at work, right? It's very important. Like, we truly believe in, like, human plus machine interactions. It's not gonna be just machines. I hope we're never, like, eating pellets, and things like that, because I think that food is way more than just nutrition. It's happiness, it's social, it's nurturing, right? So, which is related to nutrition, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's very important in our lives. And so, making it more fun and more approachable, I think that even if you're still in the confinements of the type of foods that you typically eat, it's gonna help people figure these things out and live better.
So Madhuri, maybe you could talk a little bit about, well, you have a product, but what your product is and how does it fit in the ecosystem of other products in the kitchen, other gizmos, other devices, other services, other bots that you might be talking to? How does that all play out? How's it all going to work together?
Sure. So our product is called Neo, and it's a smart container. So the idea is that the kitchen has a lot of ingredients in it, and our goal was to try and quantify that at the ingredients level. So we thought, how do people normally store things? They store things in containers and jars. And so if we can get to that point where people are storing things and just start measuring the nutrition and the consumption right at that point, then it would be a lot more easier than having that extra step of people having to go and weigh things physically every time they were consuming. And that's how the idea of the jar came about. And in terms of how it fits in the ecosystem, we've had a lot of speakers here talk about the cycle times for kitchen products, like devices in the kitchen. It's long, be it a microwave, an oven, a stove. You don't change it out once every 3 months. So it's a little harder to get those things to respond to consumer needs in a timely fashion, because even if there is a product out in the market, you're very unlikely to go and buy it right away. Whereas if it's something a little bit more smaller in scale, something that can fit into your monthly budgets, you're more you're more likely to try it out. So we tend to take common objects, things that are very basic, and try to introduce an element of invisible smartness in them. We don't want it to be in your face. The goal is not to be, hey, we're connected, there's Wi-Fi, there's Bluetooth, there's an app. That can actually set us a step back. The goal is to be invisible as technology, but intuitive and intelligent as an experience, and be able to let people be able to enjoy it in an enhanced lifestyle fashion. So that's how we see it fitting in.
Santiago?
For us, it's about, we had a first product called PrepPad, and PrepPad was a smart food scale, and that was the start on empowering people to make better decisions, right? It was also a great way for our people to show their product and design skills. We went, very premium with that product, but the most interesting thing about that product is the amount of data that we're collecting, right? And so we have one of the largest food surveys happening, right now, where our users are constantly logging in what they're eating, how much, we know what time, what place, what location. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to build new kind of experiences based on how they are, how they're, the kind of things the kind of experiences they're having in the kitchen. And so we became a much smarter company because of that product. We started understanding, we are very research driven, and we started understanding the consumer in a much better way and what the needs are. And so now for our next product, we're taking a lot of those lessons and applying I'll say we built a brain for it, and we're trying to build a brain that connects to other things as well, right? So it's not just about our product. It's about your blenders, your slow cookers, your ovens, right? It's all about what you currently have at home and applying some of this intelligence so that people actually start engaging with the appliances they have at home in a much more meaningful way, right? So we're very excited about this, all coming together. And actually, by the way, thanks, Michael, because this feels. I was yesterday during dinner, we're chatting about this. It feels like mobile 2005, and it's really exciting to be able to start working together, right? Because it's this group of people that is gonna take Smart Kitchen to the next level. So, I think that we all have a space in the ecosystem. And it's just very smart to start, talking and seeing how we can evolve these so that the consumer can actually see an advantage, right?
Well, I think it's very interesting. This conference, I think, is a proof of the general case that when you're at the frontier, the kinds of people, their backgrounds are very diverse, and they're coming from very different pasts to work on this particular new space. And you two are two examples of that, but it's the whole show that I've seen. I think, though, that raises another question, which is there some tipping point where the notion of a smart kitchen will be so ubiquitous that we won't call them smart kitchens anymore? We'll just say, I have a kitchen, and it's a 2017 kitchen or something. And that would happen when there's some tipping point, the right number of devices that can actually interoperate with each other, and then all of a sudden, miraculously, things will start falling into place. Do you have that feeling that how far away from that magical date, tipping point, where it's all going to fall together? Have any idea?
Yeah.
Laying any bets?
Well, as an economist, I love the whole notion of tipping points, but the problem is that these tipping points are very easy to point after the fact, but they're very gradual. Right? So they're not really points while they're happening, they're points afterwards, because then you're like, oh, I'm going to break the data here. Great. That's very economist-like to do. But it's very gradual, right? And we're seeing already a lot of progress in terms of the on-demand economy, right? And how that's changing sourcing ingredients and appliances getting smarter and wearables informing our decisions, right? And even, you know, like hooking up your calendar or other information to your food, you know, decision process so that, you know, it fits with your life. And so these things are happening. I don't think the consumer is ready to go, and like I don't think the consumer is looking for it. I think it's more something that, you know, it's gonna gradually like become the way that things are done. And then one day we're gonna be like, you know, oh, that was the tipping point. It was this thing or it was that thing.
Do you agree, Madhuri? Is that your theory too?
I think it goes back to the question that you said initially, Stowe, about people and conservatism. People are not looking for change. People are not looking to embrace things that are futuristic. To them, that notion is a little bit scary. So people are not going to go looking for the smart kitchen, but it is it's us as being in the front of this race, of leading this revolution, to make it such that it becomes more adoptable. It's kind of driven in such a way, it's kind of created, the experience is driven in such a way that it becomes very natural for people to start interacting with these smart devices and not even realize that they're actually interacting with them. For example, the smartphone. Now, an 80-year-old guy now looks at a smartphone and thinks that's the natural way to talk and keep in touch with his grandchildren. They don't think that it's a smartphone. They think that it's a means for them to communicate with their grandchildren. So as makers of the smart technology, the onus is on us to make it such that it is approachable and it's adoptable and people will grow into it. As for how long is it going to take, it could be tomorrow, it could be a decade. It really depends on how well the group in this room is going to decide that, I think.
Well, I think your comment about the smartphone is dead on. So this leads us into the lightning round, but I'll set the Apple iPhone came out in 2007. There were smartphones before. I had them, right? I had a whole line of Nokia, for example, that were smart, and people called them smart. And Apple came along with the touch interface and kablooey, right? Created a big dent in the world. So there is, you know, the notion of the killer gizmo that comes along and really ushers in a new era. The lightning round in one sentence, because we're running out of time, and it could be a long sentence. What do you think will be the breakout gizmo for the Quantified Kitchen?
I think it's going to be self-cooking machines. That's where I see that. So it's artificial intelligence and automation coming together in a way that we can be less in control. So really, we say it's smart devices and smart things, and honestly what it really does is the devices become smart and we become a little dumber, which is okay, because then it gives us space in our brains to go do other smart things. So it's not such a bad thing. And I think what really will be fascinating is to see the future where things can just cook themselves to the perfection of my taste, my preferences, my needs, and keep doing it on every day, every single morning and noon and night, and I not having to be able to think about it.
Santiago.
So to me, is machine learning. To me, that there are as many food journeys as there is people, and for our kitchens to learn from our behavior and to learn from our ourselves and respond to that and help us navigate that journey, it's incredibly important. And that's not gonna manifest itself in like a product. It's gonna manifest itself in like a way of thinking about this, right? And it's happening with content. It's happening in other areas too. But personalization, context, and machine learning helping on that, to me is gonna be key to basically take us to the next level of quantified self-nutrition, food, and really serving our food journey.
Thank you very much.